Okay, I think the recording is on now. So we look at the concept of using Bootstrap in React, and what is a Bootstrap? Bootstrap is basically a CSS framework. So it is a front-end framework for uh, building websites faster and easier. So it makes it very possible to build and apply your styles much faster and much easier than using the plain CSS. So it is a framework of CSS. And therefore we have seen, if I go back to our program here and run this program of ours, let me cd to the project directory, then I'm going to run it by starting the app. And it is taking some time to start up. So on the project displays here, you can see that we have some two basic project which does not have much very good user interface and the user experience. You can see when I click on conduct, we just have a basic text being displayed here, and having this the website is too basic with less uh, styles, and the UI does not look very good. The only thing we have improved on here is the header or the navigation links, which I think we have applied some styling to it. And therefore, how do we make sure that we have a very nice looking user interface which is responsive and which looks good both on a device, a desktop, which also looks good on a phone and tablets and across all the other devices? So to make sure that we do that, you must have written a lot of CSS code to help you with that style. But even to make it even more simpler and faster, we use the Bootstrap framework. So Bootstrap is nothing but rather than a CSS code which has been written somewhere, and you can just refer to it by the class names and you're able to apply. So when you look at this website, other one here, you can see it has some good looking user interface which makes it good for the users to navigate and even attractive for the users. So to be able to create something like that, we want to look on how to use the Bootstrap. So this framework, it it includes most of the design templates. For example, you want to apply typography. Typography involves things to do with the font size, the font type, the text size, and all that. It has templates for forms, templates for creating tables, templates for creating buttons, templates for navigation bars, images, models, and so many other templates. So Bootstrap gives you the ability to create a very responsive designs. Responsive design means that your design looks good across all the devices. You can, when you view it on a mobile device, it appears good. You view it on a desktop, it appears good. There are some websites when you are viewing it on the desktop, they appear very nice, but when you try to view the same website on a tablet or maybe on a mobile device, it appears to look very awkward and not good. So how do we make sure that our website looks responsive on all the devices? So how then do we incorporate and use Bootstrap in our React application? So these are the steps that are required. For you to be able to use a Bootstrap, you must install the Bootstrap library or framework within your React project. So the command to install that is just you go to your terminal within the project folder and type the command npm install bootstrap. After you have done the installation, then you must make sure that you have imported the Bootstrap in your index.js, which is the main file, or which is the entry file for React app. After you've imported it, if you also need to import the JavaScript classes that come with this Bootstrap, you can as well import the second line here. You import min.javascript, but if you only want to apply the styling, then you can just use the min.css. So this is a CSS code that is already pre-written by someone, and it is available for you to use through this framework. Then after you have imported this, you can now start using Bootstrap classes in your components. So basically the way you apply styles using Bootstrap is by using a class. Bootstrap has got so many classes, and each class defines what can be done. For example, if you want to create a button, there is a class for creating a button. You just call the class name and the button will be created. If you want to create navigation bar, there is a class for that. You just call the Bootstrap class with that correct class name, and the navigation bar is going to be created. The same thing you want to create a table, or the same thing you want to create a form, and automatically the Bootstrap will make sure that your components or your elements are responsive across the devices, so you don't have to worry about the issue of responsiveness. All right, so having said that theory, I think the theory is too much and buggy, so we can look at the practical. How can we then do these things, installing it, importing it, and how can we just use one Bootstrap to show how Bootstrap simplifies this programming instead of using plain CSS. Remember, you can still use CSS, but if you use Bootstrap, you're going to be faster, you're going to develop your application faster than someone who's using CSS. It is also going to be much easier than someone who's using CSS. It is also going to be more responsive than someone who's just using plain CSS. Why? It's because Bootstrap is already a library which has been written by people and it is tested to be good. So you just refer to the class names and the CSS styles will be automatically applied by those classes. Alright. So having said that, you can see I've just put the code snipped here. In case you are doing the practical on your own, you can even try this code first, copy this code the way it is, and create a component called contact page, and you're going to see how this contact page will come out. And then you can of course look at so many other classes. So to do that, let's go to our project folder, and here we are to our Visual Studio. So right now we have, this is our project. All right, what I'm going to do, I want to add another page. So you can see how many pages do we have now. We have the contact, about, support, new post, sign up, add post, favorite post. So let me add another page or another component. I call it which is the best name to refer to it here. Since we are looking at Bootstrap, let me call it contact page, so that when you click, we already have contact here, about, let me call it okay, let me call it another page. So I'm going to create a new file, right click on within the SRC, and then create a new file, and I'm going to call it linkage. Let me look more creative name. I can call it yeah, let me call it just conduct. Or instead we have already conduct page here. Who can suggest a suitable name we can have for that component? Any page, any name you can suggest? Or let us call it gallery. It's just a page anyway. So let me right click and call it gallery page dot js. And in this gallery page I'm going to apply some CSS. So before you can even go to writing this code, let us follow the steps. So the first step would be to install the CSS. You must make sure that within your project folder CSS is installed, and once it is installed it should appear in the package.json. So if you look now in our package.json, within the dependencies we don't have, for now we don't have the Bootstrap. So let us install it. And how do we do that? We should be at our terminal. Let me end this project now. So once you are in a terminal like this one, let me clear. Then you type npm install. And what are we installing? We want to install the the Bootstrap library, and press enter. So it will take some time to download that library into our project. And once the download is done, it is going to notify that it has already downloaded the packages. So let's give it some time. Okay, so you can see it is already done. So you can see it tells you it has downloaded. It has added 2 packages. Alright. So now when you come to your package.json, you should see Bootstrap has been downloaded. And the version we are using now is 5.3.8. Now that we have already installed Bootstrap in our project, next thing is to make sure we install this. We import this Bootstrap. So we can just check this sample import statement and we put it in our, we go to your index.js file, which is this, and make sure you import that. Alright. So we are importing. Where are we importing it from? So we are importing the Bootstrap from dist sorry about that. So when you go to your project folder, there is this folder called the node modules. When you expand it, you should see a folder called Bootstrap. Should see a folder called Bootstrap. It is right here. So when you open this, when you expand again this folder called Bootstrap, you see there is this folder called dist, And then within the dist we have the CSS. Then within the CSS, now there is bootstrap.min.css. So that is the particular file that contains all the CSS files, I mean code. Alright, then after we have imported that, let me close this. It's too many files here. Let me collapse this. We can also import the same within the app.js. So we have this file called app.js. So is it here? Right here. So we also make sure we import that within the app.js. Is this one giving us an error here? That should be this way. So we save this, and also here it should be this way. So after we have imported the Bootstrap, then the next thing is we can now use it in our components. How do we use in the component? So we are going to create a new component, and the component we have created is the gallery component. So we have a component called gallery page.js, and within that I'm going to create this symbol component, and let me call it gallery instead of conduct. Okay, and here I also export gallery. If you look at this gallery component, within the return we are returning some HTML. Can you see that? So we have an HTML returned here. So we have the outermost element or tag, which is the div. Then within that div we have the header and we have the button. Okay, and then if you look at this button, we have used the CSS class name, and the class name we have used here is called btn success. So this one is a CSS class. When you call this class, I mean this is a Bootstrap class which contains some CSS styles already, which are already there. So when this class is called, then some of the CSS styles are by default applied on this element, which is the button here. So let us view this in our browser so that we can be able to see how is this button going to be laid out. So to be able to see this component as a page in the browser, we must also make sure that we add it as one of the link here, so that when we click on that gallery we are able to see the relevant content on this body page. So we go and make sure that we first configure it in the navbar.js so that we can add the link for it. So let me add a new link. Then I specify the two attributes, then slash gallery. Alright, let me style it to white so that it can be visible behind the background, which is blue. Then the text here should be gallery. So let me run the application. Npm start. Let me close this. So it takes some time to load. This live server is becoming slow, I don't know why. Now it appears. So you can see now we have a new link here. But now when you click on this link, of course the URL will change here, but the path will change, but no content is visible here because we have not added uh, the path configuration in our app.js file. So our app.js file is right here, and therefore we need to import that component as well. So we import gallery from the gallery file. Then we come down here and add the route for it. So we add the route and we say a path slash gallery. So if the path is gallery, display the element. The element should be gallery. Alright, so let me save that. So now when I click on this gallery, you can see now we have this header, which is contact details, and we have this button, contact us. And if you look at this button, already it has some styles. Even the header has some styles. You can see the text is in blue color. It appears in the middle of the page, and the button appears here. It has some margin from the right, and then it has a background color of green. It has some uh, rounded edges here. The text color is white, and you see all those styles that have been applied. But when you go back to our code in the gallery, you can see there is no any single CSS that we've written here. So you wonder where is that style is coming from. So the styles are coming just because we have called this Bootstrap class called btn success. So this class by default, it comes with those styles that you can see on this button here. Text primary is another Bootstrap class which comes with the style that you are seeing on this text. If today I add another header, for example, let me add another header just before that one. I add header 1 and I say our gallery. And save. Without using any of the Bootstrap class, you can see that our gallery here appears here by default with no any styles. But now when you refer to CSS class, you will see that now these styles have been applied by default. So Bootstrap makes it easy for you to develop your application much faster and very much easier. So if you are not using Bootstrap, then it means that you might apply the CSS, plain CSS. So which means that if you are to apply your CSS, you will have to come within this header, the first header, and say maybe style. So you use the style attribute, and then now you start thinking of the style. What style can make this header blue color? So you can say um, color. So we have color, and then you give the property. We say the color is blue, and then again you have, maybe you want to add the font. So if you save this, yeah, so now you can see the color has changed for this one. So the only difference between this first header and this second header is that here we are using plain CSS, here we are using Bootstrap, and the results are the same. And therefore, if someone will ask, which one can I use, plain CSS or I use a Bootstrap? Both are correct, but if you use Bootstrap, you're going to make your work easier, you're going to make your application more responsive, and you're going to develop much faster, because CSS it requires that now you know all the details. You know you are a pro in using the CSS, and you're going to write much more code using CSS than if you use the Bootstrap. So which means that if you're using a Bootstrap, you only need to know, the only thing you need to know is different types of Bootstrap classes. Like for example, if you want to put a button, what is the class for putting a button? If I want to put just a text centered, what is the correct class for that? And to see or to know all the CSS classes, you can simply refer to them here on these W3 schools. Okay, so you come to your W3 schools, you see there is this Bootstrap tutorial, and the latest current version of Bootstrap is Bootstrap 5. That's why if you look in our project uh, package.json, once you install it, it gives you the latest version 5.38. All right, so you can see this is a Bootstrap. It has different classes. We have a class, we call it container. We have a class for typography. Typography refers to things like font size, font type, and stuff like that. Font size, margin, and all that. We have a class for table. If you want to place a table, what is the correct class for using that? You want to put an image, different types of an image, whether it is a rounded image, whether it is some image with rounded corners, with some image with text like this. It has, all of it has classes for different types of image. You want to put buttons, different types of buttons you want to put. You see this one is a primary, success. We have all the classes for doing that. So all you have to know is, when you are creating a class, even for navigation bar, if you want to put a navigation bar, you have different types of navigation bar. It has different classes. So all you have to do is to know the right classes for right components that you are going to use. Even though you forget, you don't have to memorize all these classes. All you have to know is the steps in using the Bootstrap. When you reach to a point where you want to use a particular thing, then you can just refer to it. It is always online, the information is always there. You can even refer to it and get that particular class and apply it in your class, in your code, or in your class components. So that's all about using the Bootstrap. You first install it, then you make sure you have imported it in the index.js like this. Then you can now use it as classes. Depending on what style you want to apply, you make sure you call the correct class name. Alright, so I will pause here and give room for questions. If you have any question to ask, before we can proceed.